evening to everyone joining us here today. I, Mahalakshmi Pendyala, take immense pleasure in welcoming each one of you to Veset's one-of-a-kind V-Reach program Phase 2, wherein we have a conversation with Veset's own successful alumni and ask them questions on your behalf. With that, let me take this opportunity to invite Dr. Chandan Singh Rawat sir, the Deputy HOD of Electronics and Telecommunication Department, to address the gathering. Over to you, sir.
Hello everyone. I am very pleased to address you today when we have gathered together in the next edition of We Reach. In the normal working days when pandemic was not there, there was a lot of interaction among your peers, your teachers and of course with the alumnus. But due to this lockdown, the interaction has been limited. Due to pandemic, when the lockdown was forced on us, Visit took an initiative called as We Reach. The aim of this initiative was to share the experiences of alumnus who excelled in different fields after completing their graduation. Today, some of our new and old alumni have joined hands with the We Reach team to discuss about their experiences, strategies, decision makings which led to the success stories in their life. Lastly, I hope that you lap up the session by reaping the fruits from the alumni discussions. Thank you.
Well, Decennium in Vocation. Quite evidently, a whole decade in one's professional journey. We couldn't have found a more successful alumnus than Mr. Yogesh Sharma to share his discerning experiences and thoughts with the students of Veset Electronics and Telecommunication Department at Veset's one-of-a-kind V-Reach, organized by Veset's IQAC. I'm as excited as each one of you are today to delve a little closer into Mr. Yogesh Sharma's life, a former Veset EXTC 2011 graduate. Let me make this introduction a little shorter than usual to allow the man himself to speak to us about his journey. Well, with an impressive resume like his, it's hard to know exactly where to begin with. Before we actually begin, I'd like to call upon Mr. Shobit Khandare, sir, to introduce Mr. Yogesh Sharma. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mahi. Good morning to everyone. Yogesh Sharma passed out from Vivekananda Education Society's Institute of Technology in 2011 from Electronics and Telecommunication branch. Thereafter, he joined in Accenture as a software engineer, where he delivered digital transformation projects for Government of UK, Government of Ontario, and Boston Scientific as a functional SME and Oracle Siebel solution architect. He did his MS in information management from University of Washington, Seattle. He has worked as a senior consultant, cybersecurity and privacy in PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP, wherein he led teams of 2 to 15 people to deliver 15 plus projects across cybersecurity strategy, threat and risk management, offensive security, and breach response. He has also worked as a senior computer specialist, UW Enterprise Data and Analytics. There are many other profiles and assignments which he has executed during his professional career. Currently, he is working as a senior program manager, cloud and AI security in Microsoft, product owner for a Ring Zero core security service responsible for cryptographically secure attestation to the entire Microsoft fleet, 5 million plus systems across all regions and clouds. Spearheaded transition of the Microsoft fleet to hardware root of trust-based identities using CPM and Cerberus, a proprietary security chip. Drove a team of 12 plus engineers to ship numerous security hardening features at scale. He is the recipient of the Microsoft 2021 Rising Star Award for 10 plus customer presentations with high CSAT and SAT scores and $120 million plus sales pipeline influence. With such a strong profile, we all are very eagerly waiting to hear from you. So, on behalf of Electronics and Telecommunication Department, I welcome Mr. Yogesh Sharma, and I'm sure that this interaction would be very informative and would motivate our students for their future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Shobit sir. With that, let me take this opportunity to welcome you on board, sir. Thank you for taking out time from your busy schedule for being with us today. I'd like you to kindly take over.
Thank you. Appreciate the introduction. So, firstly, thanks for having me here. I really appreciate the opportunity. And this was a great opportunity for me to kind of sit back and reflect on my past 10 years after I graduated from Vesit. And I did not get a chance to do that earlier. So, thank you so much for this opportunity. So how we'll go about this is I want to first uh, give a quick summary of about myself. Then I want to talk about my journey over the past 10 years. But because it's a long journey, I want to introduce a framework. I want to give you a structure in which how to think, how I thought about my journey, but then how you can also go back to your career and your future career plans and see how they fit into that framework. And towards the end, I want to also share some overall reflections about this whole experience, about my past 10 years, and then open up the floor for questions. So that being said, uh, I wanted to do something different with my introduction. So here are the three things I really love. I love sunsets, mountains, and reading. The first picture is from the first time I saw the sunset on the Pacific Ocean. This was I clicked this in late 2014 at the Golden Garden Parks in Seattle. The second one is from the most beautiful and most difficult climbs I've done in my life, and I've done it twice. Hiking continues to be one of my fondest hobbies, and that's why it's one of the top three things I love, and I want to continue to find time for it. The third picture is from the library at Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland. I love this one because it captures two additional things that I'm passionate about. One is philosophy. This entire hall that you see is lined up with busts of some of the world's greatest philosophers. The other thing that this picture symbolizes is science fiction, because this library is actually inspired the visuals of the Jedi archives in Star Wars. So now that you know me a bit better as a person, let's dive into my professional journey. So as I said earlier, like I want to walk through the various phases of my life after Vesit, but I want to also take a step back and share about my time at Vesit with the Department of Electronics and Telecommunication. I also want to give it a bit of structure, and that's why I want to, as we look at the various click stops, I will cover a brief summary of what I did in that part of my journey. What did I learn? What previously I had learned and now I've applied in that phase, and then finally what I could have done differently, or how I could have improved myself. So with that established, let's go. So at Vesit, I'll be very honest. I was okay in academics. I scraped by in some areas, so I have nothing of importance to offer there. But beyond that, I think one thing that worked out really well for me was I was very actively involved in extracurricular activities such as cultural events, debates, drama, like writing for magazines. I was part of the college street play team, and we won multiple intercollegiate competitions. An important part of my journey in Vesit was IEEE. I joined as a member and I worked through the ranks of the student council, and I'm extremely grateful to kind of have served as the chairperson in my final year. And working with IEEE, working in all these other events over the 3 years really brought out some of my skills around communication, teamwork, and leadership. And finally, I also wanted to give back to my department and my classmates. So I had been a part of the placement cell. Now, this entire part of Vesit, I learned a very important thing. Now, this is going to sound a bit meta, but I really learned that how do I learn? How do I acquire and truly retain knowledge? Let me explain further. So some people are hands-on learners. They learn by doing things. And some people are visual learners. They watch others, they observe others, and they learn. And for me, I realized that the best learning for me comes through teaching someone else, sharing my knowledge. And I remember very clearly I used to sign up for these class presentations in exchange for recovering for bad attendance or a few extra marks in that subject, like internal bracket. So, but the concepts that I really learned in order to present to the class, in order to make sure that Nandini ma'am was happy with my presentation, they're so still so fresh in my mind. And of course, the added bonus was the communication skills and the confidence and the presentation skills that came with it. And quickly reflecting on what I could have done differently, I think firstly, there is definitely a lot of opportunities for us to do projects throughout our 4-year stint at the college, but we really keep those projects in the frame of academics. Like, I really could have gone above and beyond and found paid opportunities, unpaid opportunities to really groom and apply my academic learnings to some real world problems. I could have built some more things just beyond my final year project. That is one of the reflections. That is one thing I would advise for folks to do today if you are still in college. And the other thing is, I should have taken academics a bit more seriously. But remember this point, I want to elaborate a bit more on it in one of my future slides. So after college, through campus placements, I landed a role at Accenture. And with Accenture, I think Shobit sir already covered. I did multiple very interesting projects. Uh, but one or two important things I really learned in Accenture is, the first one is to not say no to something, no matter how scary or how daunting or impossible it may sound. And there's a very important story here. So when we join Accenture arbitrarily assigns domains to all the new joiners. And the domain I was assigned is called Siebel. Like, I've never heard of it before, and that was not something that even sounded like I wanted to do. But I was very tempted to reach out to the HR team and get myself reallocated to a project that will require something that I was comfortable with, something like Java or C++. And I decided to hold off. Like, I decided to do more research while I was still in the new hire training phase, and I looked up this Oracle Siebel, and turns out it was a craze amongst big companies and governments, because it really helped them transform paper-based processes into digital processes. So I was like, okay, let me give this a try. And fortunately, throughout my work, I was able to use fundamentals of programming, databases that I had already kind of learned in college. And I got to work with some really smart people who groomed these skills further. So I started off as a software engineer, but then I was able to work my way up to being a functional expert. And towards the third year, I was also nominated for some trainings. And I became more suited for solution architecture kind of roles. And I got to work on really cool projects, like uh, Shobit sir mentioned Government of Canada, Government of UK, very big pharmaceutical companies based out of the US. So a lot of exposure just came from me not saying no to that particular assignment. The other important thing I learned in Accenture was, nothing you will learn will ever go to waste. And there is a very interesting story here. I'll cover it in a few slides. On the topic of previously learned skills, if you remember, I had mentioned how I learned that I really love presenting. So I used to enjoy creating and preparing presentations for our clients, for my team, and it was not my job. I was an engineer, but I really loved it, so I did it. And that was the main reason why when there was an opportunity to go abroad, work with our clients very closely for multiple months, my team manager was more than happy to pick me. And again, that came because I got that exposure at Visit. And finally, quickly reflecting on things I could do a bit differently, I think I was always interested in information security since like 2005, like right after 10th standard, I guess. And I used to tinker around in college, learn things on my own. But once I started working, I think I got too comfortable in my day-to-day work. Other than what I learned on the job, I did not really acquire any additional skills or knowledge especially in my area of interest, that was information security. And that came with a price. And the price was that when I really wanted to switch my role into something very security specific, it was impossible even within the company or outside the company. And that's what led me to the next stage. Now, a lot of folks use a master's degree in the US as a stepping stone, and that makes shorter programs the more preferred choice. Today, of all the master's graduates and students I know in my personal and professional circles, over 80% of them have opted for a 9 month or a 12-month program. And while looking for master's program, I was intentionally looking for a longer one because I felt that I had a lot of gaps I needed to fill in my skill set before I could make a career switch. And this program that I did, the Masters in Information Management track at University of Washington, it turned out to be the best match because it offered a specialization track, but then it was also 21 months long. Now, I corrected two past mistakes that I made in Veset and Accenture. One was self-learning. Not only did I specialize in information security, but I also got the freedom to pick many diverse courses in areas ranging from like data science, user experience, project management, uh, product management, and so much more. And I took up multiple side projects and academic projects to make sure that whatever I'm learning in these all these courses, and I'm also able to translate that into real world application, build something out of it. And the other thing I corrected was internships and on the job learning. So in those 2 years at University of Washington, I actually did 4 internships, and I very intentionally picked out the opportunities to work on things I'd never worked on before. Like there was this one internship I did where uh, I got to work on setting up an entire server infrastructure. Never did that before. I worked on data warehouses. Never did that before. So through these jobs, I got a chance to not only apply a lot of things I learned about networking, Linux, databases, and security, but I also got the chance to acquire new learnings. And of course, like needless to say, I also actively networked with professors and worked on cool projects with them, and sometimes even for free because not all opportunities are paid for. One thing I did not do well, or I could go back and change in this phase of my life, was extracurricular activities in the college. Like I think I overcorrected for my actions in the past, and I missed out on the international exposure that comes along with going to an international university. But I focused more on the academics and the job aspect. So now, uh, speaking of internships, one of my internships during my master's program was actually at PwC. And when I was interviewing for the internship, I had not yet taken any information security courses. I had signed up for them. They were going to happen in the future semesters. So I really had to rely on whatever I had self-taught in my free time. And that internship was also the very first time I really worked hands-on on a penetration testing or a hacking project. And I was hooked. I converted my internship to the full-time offer and I joined them right after graduation. And over the 3 years, I've worked on every single domain of security, right from hacking penetration testing to breach response, compliance, security assessments, privacy assessments. And I got to get really exposed to the breadth of the domain itself. I got a chance to travel across the country, multiple states, multiple cities. I got some international travel opportunities when we were advising our clients. And if you may recall, I had a pending story to tell about the Accenture learning that I had, where I said, nothing you will ever learn go to waste. So here's the story. Remember how much I was skeptical about having to learn Oracle Siebel? Well, it turns out that 3 years after I left Accenture, at PwC, I was part of a hacking team. We were hired to try and break into a network of a government department in the state of New York. We were able to break in, but we also needed to show how real attackers, real hackers can do damage. So turns out when we started looking at their systems and servers, on their corporate network, we noticed that I noticed that some server names were too familiar. Now it looks like they had Oracle SQL systems, and I really cracked my knuckles and I was like, this is where I'll shine, and I got to working. And before the week ended, I was able to extract bank account details, credit card details, social security card details, and such impactful information from all these servers and databases that totaled up to around 1.2 million accounts. And of course, this was all done in good faith. We shared it all with the customer, and the client was very happy with our work. And this is one of the reasons I also got signed up for a promotion that year. So, again, I will repeat this: nothing you will learn will ever go to waste. Um, Thinking about how I could improve myself, I think I gave too much time to work and very little time to myself and my hobbies. I was always working or traveling for work, even on weekends. And I think mental and emotional well-being do take a toll when we let work become our topmost priority. And that's what I wanted to change. So started looking for a new job. For me, it was all about getting away from travel, but then still doing something I would love, still doing something in the field of security. So, I had operated at the top of the stack for a very long time, web applications, web architecture, web security. But I wanted to go back towards the silicon, towards the chips. Now, cracking that process was so tough. Like, just for this particular role that I'm in today, in cloud and AI security, I had to give 11 interviews with Microsoft. My job, it's to protect our cloud infrastructure, which is millions and millions of machines, from attacks and threats that are targeting hardware and firmware. This is happening before even the operating system, the hypervisor, they're loaded on a cloud server. So there are 5 million plus cloud servers that are running our customers' data, customer workloads, and they're they're vulnerable. And my team's job is to secure it through our critical security services, and then we also engage heavily with hardware engineers to custom develop security chips, security microcontrollers, cryptographic processors to ensure that firmware level attacks can be detected and prevented. Now, guess what? I'm applying every single thing I learned at Vecity XCC: cryptography, encryption, networking, satellite communication, microelectronics, microcontrollers, microprocessors, digital logic design, instrumentation engineering, every single thing. And that is why I had said earlier at the very start that I should have taken academics a bit more seriously. And not only that, I'm also applying every single thing that I learned about databases, for example, in my Accenture job and in one of my internships. And I'm sure that whatever I'm learning right now, like the tremendous amounts of learning about cloud security, about how such a big company manages their infrastructure, is going to be very invaluable to me at some point in the future. And in terms of improvements, I think I have hopefully finally hit the right balance between being passionate about my work and finding time for personal life. So I hope to continue doing that going forward. Now, to wrap up, I want to reflect a bit on overall pieces of advice I would have given myself 10 years ago. The first one, keeping your sight on the end goal is great, but to not be disillusioned that there is going to be a straight path. More so, to not be discouraged that things are not going as per plan. As long as you're learning, applying, and improving, following that framework, you are growing. You're growing in the right direction. Second one is around resumes. Resumes are supposed to be built. They're not supposed to be created. They're not supposed to be written up over a weekend. It it should reflect your career choices. It should reflect what you're really passionate about, and the important thing is your ability to develop and deliver outcomes. It is not a statement of who you are or what you've done in the past, but it should be a statement of what you can be. The final thing is finding fun at work. It sounds very cliche, but I cannot stress how important this is. The other important action here that we should consider is, how to make it fun for people around us. The relationships I have built, you know, at school, in my colleges, and I've built at my various employers have really given the goodwill back to me in unimaginable ways. And speaking of goodwill, I want to sincerely thank the department and everyone involved in the We Reach initiative uh, to thank you profusely for giving me this opportunity. And I think We Reach is great, and I really encourage everyone to make the most of it. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me on email, LinkedIn, wherever you are comfortable, and I'll be happy to connect with any student that reaches out to me. I'm happy to offer mentorship and career advice. So, again, thank you so much. And this was all my time. I'm open for questions.
Thank you for such a profound presentation and sharing all your treasured experiences. I'm sure we all had a thing or two to take down from it. So, continuing with the questions. First of all, let me ask you one very relevant question we all might have. With a bachelor's degree in electronics and telecommunication and a career in cybersecurity, can you advise on what should one exactly do to bridge the gap between the field of study and field of interest?
I think that firstly, that's a very profound question, and I'm sure a lot of folks today, when they're in college, they're wondering, like, am I really learning what's relevant for me out there? And the best thing that one could do is, of course, be good in school, make sure that you're getting the right grades, but then also understand what the industry needs. Understand, if, say, you want to become a user experience researcher or UX designer, you need to understand what the role is. Like, you need to talk to the professionals who are actually in those roles to understand what is it that they do day to day, what is it that they need to kind of bring to the table in terms of skills. And once you do that, you will understand, okay, here's what I'm learning in school, here are the gaps, right? And then all you need to do is, you know take certifications. There are hundreds and hundreds of free videos available on YouTube on every single topic you can think of. Watch them and learn, but then don't stop there. I think the additional thing that the recruiters of today they're looking for is your ability to show outcomes, as I said earlier. So if you say, oh, I've learned Android application development, here's my certificate, right, from an online course, it doesn't count. You need to build an app. You need to be able to tell me, hey, like, if I'm your interviewer, you can tell me, hey, like, open Android store or Android Play or iPhone's Apple Store and download this app. This app is something that I've made. That is way, way more impressive than saying, hey, like, here are the 10 certificates from the 10 courses I've done online.
Thank you. Moving on. Being in the industry for over 10 years, what would you potentially look for if you were hypothetically in the position to hire new graduates from our institution?
Um, Great question. So, first one, as I said, definitely looking for really tangible outcomes. But then also, I think today what we're actively recruiting for is someone's passion for the topic, not necessarily uh, how qualified they are or uh, how much they bring already in terms of experience. You could be a fresher, right? It doesn't matter, but of course you would be hired for a fresher role, but you would kind of bring in, or you're expected to bring in, a certain level of open-mindedness, a certain level of enthusiasm when you come in for your role, and it kind of reflects in the way the person communicates during the recruitment process. And it kind of really shows when you're prepared for answering questions that are not necessarily theoretical, because interviewers can go forth and ask you really simple yet uh, questions that are complicated in a way that require you to think strategically about the topic at hand. Anyone can write a code for a Fibonacci sequence, right? I will not ask you that in interviews. What I'm looking for is, how would you go about solving a problem that's out there in the real life. And what will help someone to kind of excel in this process is to read about real world problems. So how much are you kind of keeping yourself updated through podcasts and news blogs and technical articles and technical papers is what I would really care about.
Lately there has been a huge uproar in students pursuing data science as the major in their masters. What do you think about this? Does it really have merit, or are people just riding the wave? If so, what other avenues students should consider pursuing who want to make a big career in the software industry?
That's a loaded question. uh, Firstly, data science. I did take some courses when I was doing my master's degree, and one thing to note here is that the data scientist position or the job title, it entails a lot more than programming. It entails that you have a fundamental understanding of statistics, about concepts around the power of mathematics, right? So it's important for you to not only learn how to kind of write a program, but also how to uh, write that program in the language of statistics. So there are specific tool sets that are available in Python, in Perl, and in R, where folks can really practice and understand what it takes. So that's one part, and then the other part is about the relevance of the field itself. I cannot really comment too much on it, but because I'm not in that domain. But I would definitely say today, even when I'm solving security problems, I'm solving them based on data. Like, I'm looking at data from these millions of servers, and I'm trying to make sense out of it. I'm trying to understand that, hey, like, X% of these servers are displaying this behavior. This behavior has been previously associated with an adversary or a malicious third party. So now, how do we correlate these patterns with what we are seeing out there in the real life? So, of course, my engineers are building mathematical models. They're building data science models to kind of mimic the attacker's behavior and bring those patterns into the work that we're doing. And this is going to be true pretty much everywhere you go in big tech. uh, Data science and business intelligence are definitely the most celebrated fields out there right now.
Thank you. Moving on. It has been long regarded that to have a lucrative career, one should target the big tech companies. Does this still hold true? And what would you advise students on the cusp of entering the corporate world?
um, Thanks for putting that question that way, because I think one thing I definitely want to call out is the lucrativeness of the career should not be the main attractive factor. uh, I know it there is definitely a pressure on students to kind of get placed while they're still in college, and that pressure was still there on us when we were doing our master's degree. So, but then definitely taking a step back and thinking very intentionally about, like, hey, and I made that mistake. Like, I decided to take the software engineer job. So I'm not really complaining that uh, that job was not fulfilling. Of course, I learned a lot, as you heard. Like, I really learned some skills that were useful in very different circumstances. So whatever you learn will definitely be useful. But then also think about what do I really need to get out of this role? Like, am I here to join this company and be here for the next 30 years? Probably not. So is there a specific set of skills I want to acquire or I want to apply to build towards the next step in my career? So that should be the guiding decision or the guiding principle for you to determine, hey, like, there are these 10 companies that are offering to hire new joiners. Which ones of these do I really intend to join, based on not the lucrativeness but also the learning opportunities?
And for our last question for today, Every year, we have considerable amount of graduates from our department willing to pursue further studies abroad. And with a
Mhm.
master's degree from the University of Washington, can you ponder upon your hardships faced in the entire process, right from giving the GRE or GMAT to writing an SOP to procuring letter of recommendations to financing your degree? If you could walk us through your whole journey and how was it like for you personally?
You gave me a lot of memories when you were asking that question. So thanks for that. I think for me it was a slightly different experience than what majority of my batchmates must have kind of gone through, because uh, I was doing all this when I was already 3 years out of college. So, firstly, I had to get back into the mode where I had to study for GRE. And while working full time in Accenture, and I was also in the middle, I was traveling internationally. So, definitely, I think going back to the way I learned, I not only did I just study GRE, but I also found a group of like-minded individuals around me who were interested, and we did like a study group. And that's how I really learn and acquire knowledge. So I was able to kind of make sure that whatever I'm learning, I'm able to solidify it by teaching the folks in the study group. So that's something that was kind of very useful for me. The SOP and LOR, of course, very thankful to our department, Nandini ma'am, Shobha ma'am, Rawat sir, Naganand sir. They really helped me through the process of um, not only being able to talk about my academic interests and contributions to the department, but then also really step back and think about how I want to already take what I've learned and then bring that to my master's program, because they're also looking for students who are bringing in that diverse perspective, that diverse background. Uh, so that was a very insightful experience, thinking about what I really need to do with my career, uh, and jotting it down in the statement of purpose. And one piece of advice I'd like to give for folks is write with your write with your heart. Like, you don't need to worry about, uh, of course, grammar and sentences are something that you will automatically fix, but then the message should clearly convey your true intent of why you want to do a particular program. And I'm telling this because I was also part of the admissions committee at my university. So I reviewed tons of applications in my second year, and we were like screening out and screening in candidates based on GRE score, and like all these academics, they will just help you pass the cutoff. But then beyond that, what you write in a statement of purpose, what your professors have said about you in the LOR, those are very important. And for folks who are going to, who are planning to work for a couple of years before opting for a master's degree, definitely keep in mind that you would need professional references as well. So having great relationships, having good mentorship from your peers in your job will also be extremely useful when you reach out to them for letters of recommendation.
Thank you for patiently answering all our questions. We are glad and extremely proud of the great feat you've achieved. You've surely
Thank
been
you.
an inspiration to many of us today to dream big. Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much.
much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me, Mahalakshmi Pindyala, and Bhuvna Rai Singhani from the EXTC department profound pleasure to be here among three incredible women who have paved their way to the top, being the inspiration to many at our college today. Welcome Neha Chaudhary, Rajsi Desai, Preeti Wadhwa at the one of a kind We Reach program organized by Wessex IQAC cell. Look at usual things with unusual eyes. This is exactly how our today's guest, Rajsi Desai, perceives the world. Rajsi Desai is a UX researcher at the MathWorks. She did a master's in information management and systems from UC Berkeley. Graduated from Vesett in 2014. Your role in tech demands you to be flamboyant, humanizing, and emphatic. And we know you're nailing it in and out. We are truly proud of your notable achievements that include Dr. James R. Chen Award for the project Improving Enrollment Experience for Families and a joint CTSP/CLTC fellowship at UC Berkeley. We are extremely humbled to have you among us.
Our next guest, Preeti H. Wadhwa, completed Masters of Electrical Engineering from California State University and now is currently working as a senior WR&D engineer at Qualcomm in San Diego. She has undoubtedly an impeccable and vibrant list of experiences. She completed her BE from Vivekananda Education Society in July 2013. She has a zealous persona through and through, which makes us proud. She has given back to the society through her notable publications on the topic of cost-effective implementation of a human arm emulator and image processing. She also has patents on enhanced performance and power saving in LTED modem Qualcomm, enhanced authentication and connection setup procedures in LTED modems. It is a great pleasure to have you today.
Thank you, Bhavna.
People are often surprised at how many risks I take. Our next guest for today, Neha Chaudhary, has been into the tech industry, worked her way up being a software engineer trainee to a risk manager. She has done MBA degree in finance from Indian Institute of Management, Lucknow, and a bachelor's degree in engineering at Vesett. Your tech voyage unquestionably has been a roller coaster ride, but it makes us proud to see you handle with finesse. She graduated from Vesett in May 2011. We are truly humbled to have you among us. Well, for starters, I'd like to ask each one of you one memory that you reminisce till date about college and brings in those bursts of nostalgia for you guys.
For me, one memory which I cherish and nurture is the most is the industrial visit which we had during our third year of college. So it was organized by some of the major societies of the college, IST, CSI, IEEE. I don't know what is the, how many societies are present today. Yeah, but so it was a one day holiday when they had taken us to Daman and so it was a very fun time because that was the first time when our entire batch got together. So that got together, and during night, all the girls of my classroom, we were in the same room, like chit chatting, sharing banters, sharing jokes. That was a great time, like when we got to know each other, like know each other's secrets, know many things we didn't know. So I think that's important, to further bolster the friendship, to get to know our classmates together. So it was a very fun time which we shared. And I just hope the societies currently keep on organizing such events like.
Rajsi and Preeti?
Yep, I can go next. So yeah, like Neha's memory is very similar to mine. I also had that as one of my top ones, but my favorite one has to be organizing these IPL auctions in our class. So I was in college between 2010 and 2014, and IPL was a little bit new. And a couple of my friends said, oh, we should have an auction. And almost the entire class was sitting divided into teams, and we would raise our thing. Oh, I want to bid on this player. I want to bid on that player. And we followed the entire IPL, and we had winners in the end. This was all virtual. We didn't bet any money or anything. It was just so much fun, and we kept doing it. Even when I see IPL now on the TV now, I'm just oh yeah, I remember this player. He really did not perform when I had him on my team, and we still talk among each other. We're still in touch. So yeah, it's one of my treasured memories from college.
I think we have something on that line called the Dalal Street now in college. So it's something really interesting. How about you?
I think for me, mostly thinking about the labs.
especially being in EXTC, I had to go to labs a lot of time. I personally used to cherish the time I spent there. And every time I currently see a breadboard, it always reminds me back of college and those experiments that we used to do. So that's one memory that it just brings me back to Vivekanand.
I think it's safe to say that we also are missing college since the pandemic. It's been 2 years since we've visited our campus. So
I know that's true. Just being a feeling of being around the campus, working on those labs, equipment. I'm sure everybody has been missing that a lot, and for me, that has been like a fond memory.
well, I have a very common question for Neha. A question that you might face very often is, and apologize me for asking this, but what made you make the paradigm shift from tech to accounting and finance? What brought that zeal in you that triggered you to make that sort of shift?
Okay. So it is a common misconception that engineering and finance are two distinct fields. And when someone decides to pursue like an MBA after engineering, that he or she is having a career path or paradigm shift. But one has to also remember that majority of the MBAs in India are engineers. Like you go to the top B schools in India, IIMs or JB or any other B school, like majority of the the schools are being over there, and that is what even the employers seek. Like the employers want to hire more engineers. So of course it is changing now, but that was the trend like when I was doing my MBA. So one has to ask ourselves like why is that the case? Like why do employers seek an engineer and an MBA with a so that is because if you take the example of any finance professional, MBA in finance, that person needs set of skills, and engineering is the one who can bring those set of skills like for the employer. So engineer has many transferable skills which he can get into finance. For example, a finance professional needs analytical skills. He needs mathematical skills because he needs to work on complex finance mathematical models. A finance profession also needs to be a good programmer, good coder, because automation is heavily used in finance. We need to automate stuff so that we are not losing on time, and time is money. So these are some of the transferable skills which engineer can bring to the table. Also, another thing one has to understand is that technology is also the buttress of finance. What it means is finance cannot progress or proceed the way it has progressed so far unless and until technological innovation hadn't taken place in the finance field for so far. So one example of that, which I can give is there is one app, not app, but a website known as Remitly, and I'm sure Preeti and Rajasi must have used it. So that's an app which is used for cross international money transfer. So all those expats who are living in Canada, US or UK, they can easily send transfer money to their relatives in India. So it happens in matter of seconds, literally. It's very quick over the traditional channels like banks, where banks are very expensive. They charge transaction charges, this, that, no. So Remitly is basically an example of financial, what we call as this fintech. It is a fintech company. What it means is a financial technology company. So it is in these companies we need people who have both set of experience and who have worked on both sides of the field, like who have an engineering background, who have a technological background, also who understand the basics, the finance field as a whole. Because we need to understand, and a technology person, needs to understand the operations of how this will go, and a finance person needs should be the one who understands the finance aspects of it. So it is in these fields like companies like fintech, where a MBA with an engineer with an MBA, can be a good fit. So hope it answers the question.
Yeah, it totally does. I mean, that was quite an insight into finance and technology and how they're actually codependent. And I mean, it's truly remarkable of you to actually ace technology and finance, both of the most sought after fields together, with a degree in engineering and a degree in MBA finance. I think it's truly remarkable of you. With an impeccable experience in UX, Rajsi, Can you talk to us about your journey post your bachelor's and finding your passion in UX research? What aspect of it really intrigued you to pursue a specialization in it? I mean, any advice to prospective students who are keen on taking this sort of path?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was first introduced to anything similar to UX in my final year at Vivekanand. So what ended up happening was a couple of friends were really passionate about watching TV shows, and you would think not a lot would come out of watching TV shows, right? But we really wanted to do something about it. So we decided to like start up, and we called it Pass the Remote, where we would have these accessories like T-shirts and badges that we would print and set up stalls at tech fests. That's the first time I learned Photoshop through YouTube videos, and we created these designs. We even set up a stall at Praxis. I hope Praxis is still a thing. So yeah, it was very well received, and I really enjoyed doing something that was, creating something in a design form and then having people enjoy it. Shortly after undergrad, though, I started working at Accenture, and so Pass the Remote kind of took a backseat. But at Accenture, I learned a lot of things as a quality assurance engineer, interacting with people, prioritizing things, working with ambiguous and unambiguous requirements. So combining both of these things together, I thought that, I can explore something in that area where I can combine my love for design, but also working with building things from scratch. And that's why I decided to go back to school again, and I applied to information management program at UC Berkeley, where I had a lot of freedom to pick the kind of courses I wanted. So we only had like 4 courses that we had to take, the mandatory ones, and then it was up to me how I designed the course. So I took some courses for like Python, but some had UX design and research, and that's how I finally landed with a UX research role. I felt that freedom and that flexibility was really important to me, because I remember I was in my early 20s and I was like, oh, I don't know what to do with my life. Like, I just don't know what I'm passionate about. So having that freedom really helped me. And maybe anybody who's listening today might feel like, I don't know what I really want to do with my life. So I just want to let you know that it eventually works out. You'll definitely figure out where you want to go in life. And as a tip, if you want to explore UX, my recommendation would be to try some online courses. There are lots on Coursera and other platforms. And if you find that interesting, and if you want to talk further, please feel free to reach out via LinkedIn, and I'm happy to talk you through anything that you might want to hear. But yeah, making a career switch can be really scary sometimes, but it works out, I promise you.
That's an interesting
Thanks.
story. I mean, all your interests are discovered unexpectedly, like you had your discovery.
Also, just a heads up, Ratsi, like currently even I am slightly confused and inclined towards UI UX. So I think that was very insightful for me. Even I was feeling that, I'm kind of lost and maybe I don't know what am I supposed to do at this moment. But I think that was really insightful.
No, I'm happy to talk further afterwards if you need to, but I'm sure you'll figure it out.
Okay. So I have a question for Preeti. Can you talk us through the important skills and vital courses that the students of EXTC department who are on the cusp of entering the corporate world should necessarily acquire to establish a successful career in the electronics and telecom industry?
Sure. So I think basically think of it as a foundation or a base. So basically, all the courses that you learn or acquire during your classes at Vivekanand would help you build that base and help you identify what you actually need to do in life. I actually echo with what just Rajasi mentioned, and we all have pretty much started from a feeling of not knowing where we want to go and what we want to end up doing and what we end up being like maybe like a wireless engineer or a telecom engineer. So there are so many different opportunities or different streams that you can take up after you graduate. So the time that you get right now when you are studying in a university is a very important time, I believe. All these courses, syllabus gives you an opportunity and in-depth understanding of these different key areas. So when you study in the course, you have different levels, right? You start with first year where you have a generalized curriculum, which gives you an idea of all the basic subjects, and then you proceed to second and third year where you choose your specialization. So basically, for my case, in the third and the second year, I realized that wireless is something that I really want to major in, and that is something that I really want to pursue my career in. So you want to be at least in a point to be able to identify what you really are passionate about. So I think these 3 years or 4 years that you spend in your university gives you that ample amount of time to spend on yourself to understand what I really specialize in, what is my core strength, and where do I feel that I can contribute back in a company or maybe in a society or even at a university level, no matter what career you choose. So I think these fundamental courses are really, really important. So I would just have one suggestion for everybody watching this video, that just make sure that you're utilizing this time enough to realize what you want to do next in your career. So irrespective of where you took your career, just make sure that you take this time out and understanding all your basics. So let's say when you are going to a company or any career opportunity, you also want to make sure that your basics are really strong and clear. So even if I interview today, if I get interview or if I take somebody's interview, we always expect that you know your basics. So this time is really important and just make sure that you make the most out of it. So I think that would be one suggestion that I would like to give everybody, and that has helped me personally identify what I want to be in my career.
I think that was very methodically said. So thank you for that.
Sure.
So next, my question to all three of you. While it is a very generalized question, so while it is imperative for a student to build an impressive resume, owing to the unprecedented pandemic, it has been really tough for students to gather on-field experience and take up real-time projects. In a scenario like this, could you help elaborate upon necessary key points a student needs to take into consideration in order to build a striking resume?
I'm happy to go first if
I
you'd like.
think sure.
Um, so I think I empathize with anybody who's a student right now. It must have been really challenging the past year and a half to not go to school, and there must be limitations with no in-person internships or working on hardware projects. But I think to make the best of what we have in the situation, my recommendation would be to think about what is it that you want to do in the next couple of years. If your goal for the next couple of years includes some skills that you don't currently have, I think this is a great time to just learn those things and also work with your friends or collaborate with your friends on some projects. It's something that involves writing code or learning Python or R, something like that. There's something that is remote friendly. So explore any remote friendly projects that you can do. And I have a soft spot for passion projects. The project that I told you about earlier with Pass the Remote, it had nothing to do with tech, but it opened a lot of doors for me. I wrote about it in my statement of purpose for school applications. I spoke about it on campus jobs. I spoke about it for the job I have right now. So you don't necessarily have to do everything related to academia. I acknowledge that it's a very important part, but if there's something that makes you happy, and especially during like these challenging times, just go for it. Just try to work on a project. Maybe nothing will come out of it, but you'll have fun doing it. One last thing that I'd like to say is going away from academia again. If you're interested in things like social work or working with nonprofits, I know that they're always short-staffed. So if you want to, volunteer your services there, it doesn't have to be like 10 hours a week. But if it's just, I don't know, 5 hours a month, you can just offer your services or help somebody. And those things really matter too, especially when you're applying to schools abroad. So yeah, there's a lot of things that you can do, and try to not restrict yourself just to academia would be my suggestion.
I think that was well summarized answer, Rajeshi. I would like to echo to what she just mentioned. Basically, all this time that we have fortunately or unfortunately spent during the pandemic has made us realize that this time can be utilized on a lot of our personal skills as well. So let's say, for example, if there are any courses that you might want to do apart from your curriculum, this is the right time. So you can utilize that extra amount of time that you have, that you're not probably traveling or not heading out. You can use those to make sure that you take enough online courses. Or if there's anything that you wanted to do in terms of opening a small business, identifying what skills can be used to give back to the society. So like Rajesh mentioned, right, there are so many non-profit organizations where you can give back. So when we actually were in person and going to offices and college, we never used to think about all these different opportunities that we have. But now, given the fact that it's pandemic, we all are at home, it gives us a bit more time to spend on ourselves and understand on what I really want to do. So just think about what you really want to spend your time on and just explore online courses, explore any opportunity that you find on your way to make sure if there's something that you want to give back to the society as well. So I think that would be my suggestion.
I would like to echo to what both of them said. Yeah, it is important that students be up to date with what is happening in the world, in the technological world, or in the financial world. So, giving my example, currently in banks or in the finance industry, knowing Python is a must. Or even all those who are in the core finance, it is expected that they know Python. So just identify which are the most sort of language or a sort of technology in the world currently. Invest time in learning that. It's very important. You don't know that will just set you apart while you're going for a job interview or applying for any good school in the US. It will be a USP. Secondly, you can it is a LinkedIn is a very important social networking website. Like keep your profile up to date on LinkedIn. Like write everything, all the projects which you have done on LinkedIn. This is a time when most of the recruiters they look out for potential candidates on LinkedIn. Also important is do courses on Coursera, use LinkedIn Learning. LinkedIn is a place where you can find like-minded like professionals, anything which you want to pursue. It's a very most easiest way to access to whatever you want in this world. Last but not the least, what I want to add is that while you are building your resume, it is in India one thing works is that is one resume which fits for all. But coming to Canada, I realized that that's not the case. Like one has to tailor make your resume. What it means is that if you are applying to 3, 4 different jobs and they have different job description, you have to tailor make your resume to each job description. There has to be 4 resumes, not just one applying for all. So tailoring means what? Whatever are the keywords in those resumes, in those job descriptions, you have to incorporate those keywords into your resumes. So that is very important. That creates an impression in the mind of the employer that you are interested in the jobs, you are considered as a fit for this role. That is important. And adding to them, yes, social work is very important because that is what is looked after in Western countries. Like other than what you did, how you gave back to the society. Because in Western countries, what is important is how good citizen you are, rather, of the country, rather than, how knowledgeable you are in your field. That is very important over here. So, yes, that's one thing.
I think just to add to what Neha just mentioned, right, this whole pandemic thing, right, especially has made us or brought us to a realization that we also have a responsibility towards our society. So yes, taking care of your personal life has been our goal since we were born, of course. But this time or this unprecedented time has also made us realize that there are many people who need our help. And if you feel that if you are in a position to give back, you might just want to spend this little bit amount of time to think about if there is something or if there is a way that you can give back to the society as well.
I
So
think
that
that
can be also actually I it just reminds me of something that you can include in terms of technology as well. So there are many STEM related opportunities to give back as well. There are websites, there are folks, or there are students who are currently in high schools and need some guidance in terms of exploring different STEM opportunities. That's where you can also contribute and give back, being in the university yourself.
I think that was really insightful. And as we are in final year, one of the major things that we need to focus on is our resumes right now. So yeah, that was very insightful. And
was
so
beautifully
yeah,
put forth by the three of you.
yeah. So I have a question for all three of you. In the tech industry, we hear names of Jeff Bezos, Sundar Pichai, Elon Musk, etc. More often than, let's say, a Kimberly Bryant, Reshma Saujani, or a Suzanne Wojcicki. What do you think is fundamentally wrong with the society that only emphasizes and glorifies men and technology? What are your views on this?
So I think I would like to go first. So basically, in the society, right, there are different people with different kind of mindset and different thoughts on the same topic. So for sure, there is a problem of gender bias that exists in the society. It can be hidden or it can be exposed. You will just experience it at different levels, or you might not end up experiencing it. So for sure, as you just mentioned, it's about the society's mindset. So if you take ownership of the problem, I think there are a couple of things that we can end up doing. So in terms of if you feel if there are any gender gaps or gender biases that happens around you. For example, when you study in a university, if you find any kind of gender bias, for example, if there is a male colleague who is given more priority than you, so that's one way of gender bias. But when you work in a corporate world or in a company, where in a meeting you are not valued enough as your male peer, that is also one kind of gender bias. So some kind of gender biases are unconscious and some of them are consciously done. So I think to change the society, we just need to figure out how can we change ourselves. So to me, if I see any problem, I try to figure out if there is a solution that I can find and I can just change their mindset based on my behavior. So, for example, if you find any such situations where you observe gender bias, just try to figure out how can you be so confident or how can you change the thinking the way society is right now. So basically, if there are ways where we can encourage more female engineers to be part of STEM and basically like encourage a lot of female co-workers, engineers to be more part of what they do and be proud of what they are doing to speak up for themselves, have a voice in the society, that would also help change the mindset that the society has towards female engineers or females in general.
Yeah, that's true. Is there anybody else that would like to add to this?
Yeah. So what happens is that when you think of the word engineer, the image that conjures up in your mind is that of a man, and it is by default. So why does that happen? Because if you see, like women started entering the world of engineering around, I think, 20 to 25 years back. So before that, there were not many women engineers. And secondly, if you see, while I was doing engineering, I passed out in 2011. At that time, out of 60, there were just 13 to 15 girls in my classroom, EXT. So that was the difference in numbers and all. I think the reason why less women were entering the world of engineering at that time was it was because engineering was considered to be more of a rigorous field, requiring a lot of physical activity, whatnot. But I think that is now changing. That more and more women are entering the field of engineering. There are more number of girls in the classrooms and all. More numbers of girls are taking up good major roles in the organization. More number of girls are going to US for higher studies. So I think that is we like that's about to change, and eventually, like, so I think whatever the setback for women was it is not a setback for women, but it's just that there were more number of men in the field, I feel. That is why we don't see like names of women popping up in our mind when we think of engineers. So this will change eventually. Thank you.
I'd like to add something. So I have very similar sentiments to what's been said already. Even in my class, out of 75, only one third or less than one third were women, and that's because fewer women are encouraged to pursue STEM fields, especially science and engineering. Because I don't know, there's this perception that we may not be good at math or anything that has to do with like high amount of intelligence we might not be good at, which is not true at all. I mean, look at all five of us talking here. But yeah, the bias just keeps on going. I've been reading a lot about this stuff, and you have fewer women entering the workforce. Some of them will come in, you will get hired, but the biases don't stop there. You have major life events like having children, which companies will say, we're extending maternity leave from 12 weeks to 21 weeks, but that's not the end of it. Like providing flexible and work environments, providing flexibility is something that is improving, but it could be much, much better. Something that I've also noticed is from my time working in IT in India is there was this unspoken rule that, if you stay late at work, that means you're more productive. And it's preposterous. Like, it's not accurate at all. There can be somebody who's coming into work at 8:30, stays till 6:30, does her job, but somebody might come in at noon, stay till 10 o'clock at night, and be like, oh yeah, this guy is working a lot. That is like, this sort of perception only favors one gender. Not everybody, not all women can stay at work at 10 o'clock, especially considering they are primary caregivers at home. Looking after children or looking after any elders in the house is a responsibility primarily of women. So there are a lot of these instances where implicitly or explicitly there is bias. And one of the major things which I think Neha and Preeti already said is a lack of role models. So since we haven't seen a lot of women engineers that have occupied high positions, sometimes we can't see ourselves being there, because if you can see it, you can be it. So if you see only, if men around are seeing Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, it might not be very difficult for them to imagine, oh yeah, I can definitely be like that. But sometimes with women, if you don't see somebody that's already been there, the barrier is a little bit higher for you to get there. So yeah, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. Maybe the numbers are getting a little bit better. We have a little bit more women engineers, but there's a long way to go.
Yes, I think that was very well summarized. Adding to that, were there any particular scenarios where you felt the need to justify yourself more in the corporate world than your men counterparts, or was it a smooth ride for all of you?
So I think for me personally, it has been a smooth ride in Qualcomm, but I'm also aware about the different problems that might have happened, but I have never been open-sided to just focusing on those problems rather than, I said, it's just my personality to find and understand what I can change in myself rather than uh, changing everybody else in the room. So let's say, for example, in the meetings, I always observe, even though in Qualcomm we have a lot of female engineers, but the ratio is like really bad in all the tech companies, including all the engineering firms. So the ratio still remains 5 to 1. So for every 5 men, you have just one woman engineer. So just imagine me sitting in a room or a conference room with meeting like so many different male peers, right? So there are unconsciously there are some biases that would happen. So for example, if I want to raise an opinion, or I would be a little bit hesitant if I feel so many male counterparts sitting in the same room. But then eventually I realized it's just within me. I have to change myself. I have to gather that courage and just speak it out. I mean, whatever it is my opinion, and I just have to speak it. So irrespective of what the other person thinks, I just realized that it is the way I have to speak, and this is the way I have to change myself. So I think this is one of the experience that I would like to share. We also need to acknowledge one important thing is you need your male peers. So the whole question or the talk doesn't focuses on how we can bring in more women engineers, but also we have to respect and also understand the male peers, the value that they bring into our life, the value that they bring into our corporate world. And even wherever you are, they will bring in a special place. So all we need to do is and focus on the two different problems that I feel exist in the society today. We need to encourage more women to enter into the field of STEM engineering, STEM basically engineering, science or tech or math, anything. And we need to make sure once a female is in the field, we want to make sure that we have all the encouragement that we can provide. So irrespective of female or a male colleague, we want to be respectable or we have to show some respect to your colleague and make sure that they grow in their role. And also, basically, once an engineer joins a firm, right, it's not restricted to just one position. So, like Rajasi mentioned, there will be many life events, right, in a life of a woman that you have to be acceptable. So, the company also has to be open to those kind of life events, be open to hiring more women engineers, be open to like a flexible workplace. So there are a lot of places where you can change yourself and also like force people to change them as well. So that's my suggestion.
Coming to me, so I have a total of 8 years of experience working in India and Canada. And in my entire 8 years, I did not experience any gender bias in the corporate world. Listen. consciously never. Like, but I always felt that I was treated as equal. But the issue rises is that when women, during promotions and during for the roles of senior management, we do not find many women working. Even if we find women, like we find it, in the lower roles. But when it comes to promotions and working, going up the ladder, women generally is set back compared to like men. So we have to understand why. So I think that is because of the difference in the thinking of how men think and how women think. So it is said that men are from Mars, women are from Venus because they think very differently. So taking an example, like if there is a job where suppose a job of a senior director in a company and a woman wants to apply and a man wants to apply. So there are 10 list of qualifications that is listed over there. And how a woman will think is, okay, out of this 10, I just know 8. I just qualify for the 8. So I'm not suitable for this role. Whereas how a men would think is that, oh, out of this 10, I qualify for 5. So I am qualified, so for this role, I should go and apply. That is a difference the way women and men think. That so what I feel is that women need to change the mentality over that. So self-esteem is very important. Rather than what others think, what you think of yourself is very important. Never think yourself to be lesser than men in any way. So important to just bring about change in the mentality. Second thing is, which I noticed with many of my female colleagues, is that they carry their tensions to the office. I had a female colleague in India. She will be like, after going home, I have to do this, I have to do that. I have to deal with the maid in the morning. I have to ensure that she gets up. She comes on time. Then only I'll reach office on time. I'm like, okay, that everybody has their own sets of problems and their own sets of tension, but don't carry them to the office. Leave them as you leave your house and just come to the office, focus on your work, focus on your goals. That is important. Men, they don't do it. Like, once they leave the house, like all the tensions, they remain there. They come to the office, they focus on their work. So that is what I think more of a change in mentality, a change of difference in mentality or difference in the way men and women think, that sets women behind men, then more than the capability. That's what I think, and we need to bring about that change. It's important.
Something you'd like to add, Rajsi?
Yep. So yeah, thinking about like any specific instances, I think I share the same sentiment with Preeti when she said, she's often like there are a lot of men in the room. There are a lot of meetings where I'm the only woman in the room, and it can get a little intimidating to be like, oh, okay, there's like all of these men, and I'm here. Should I speak up? Should I be a little bit more brave? So when I was very new, I struggled a lot with, oh, maybe like if all of them are saying something and I disagree, I would often speak up because I would think, oh, maybe they know best. And a lot of this has to do with, thinking, oh, like, am I smart enough? I don't think a lot of like men think about stuff like that before speaking up. They would like give their opinion, but I had to train myself or like get myself out of that comfort zone to be like, okay, you have a thought, you are here for a reason, you're qualified, just speak up. And it can be challenging to often be like the only person in the room. It can be in any way. For example, to the audience, there might be just one girl in a BE project, your final year project, with like three men or three of your male colleagues, and they might have an opinion, but it's important to know that your opinion matters too. um, I think there's been just one specific incident that happened, and I can't go into a lot of details, but I was facilitating a meeting where I was a subject matter expert, like it was my forte, and this male colleague continuously kept interrupting me over and over again. And I tried to be very nice and very polite about it and saying, like, let's hold our questions till the end, but that person just would not give up. So it ended up that the person that just took over the meeting and started facilitating instead of me. And it has never happened to me before. I was like, how is this happening? Like, there are so many people in the call, and this guy just feels so entitled to take over. And he's like, oh yeah, no, I know better. And he started talking, and I just went silent. And that was a day where I was just like, what am I doing here? Like, should I be doing this? Did he take over because I'm not good enough? And I had to like talk to my manager about it and figure things out. And I realized I was not really the problem. Only like the person has issues with encroaching and speaking way out of turn, but it kind of impacts your confidence a little bit, doesn't it? Like when you're speaking and then somebody's just like bulldozing over the conversation. So I wouldn't say that there's and nobody's going to come and say, I'm doing this to you because you're a woman. Sometimes there are just like things that are subtext. It's not always explicit, it's implicit. So having the support of like managers and talking through situations like this has been helpful for me. And I just wanted to address one point about like bringing like things that are worrying you from home to work. I feel like men have the privilege of not bringing tensions from home to work because they're not primary caregivers, right? Like if there's something wrong with the child, it's mostly they're going to call out to their mom, or if the parents are not doing well, if somebody's taking their problems to work, I think the organization should step in a little bit to make life easy for that employee. It doesn't always have to be a female. It can happen with any gender. But sometimes like men have that ability to take a back seat. This is not specifically in tech, but I can tell you from my mom's work experience. So she led promotions because she wanted to stay home with us. You adding to the fact that she's a single parent, she did not want to leave me and my sister alone while I was in engineering. At the same time, there were male colleagues of hers who were taking promotions and going to, I don't know, Pune or Bhopal, or they would like switch jobs because they had the flexibility to do so, because you have like a wife who's taking care of your children. So some of these roles, like if you need a promotion, you need to be transferred somewhere else, also have a lot of biases within them, because the person who ends up staying at home is the primary caregiver who ends up being the woman of the house. So yep. Thanks.
I think all your experiences have truly been insightful for us female students. Thank you for throwing light upon all the plausible problems and solutions. I mean, it truly prepares us females who are on the cusp of entering the corporate. So, my question my question to all three of you, given that you've had the opportunity to study and work in the States or Canada, what were the major differences that impacted you, between the way things go about from an academical point of view or a corporate point of view in India and the States?
Let me start. So I studied in India, did both engineering and MBA in India, but I worked. I started my corporate career in India, corporate career in India, and then I moved to Canada and started working here. So while I was looking for jobs in Canada, there was a stark difference which I noticed in the way things are approached in India and the things that are approached in Canada. So in India, there's a lot of focus which is given on just the technical skills of a candidate. So if they are interviewing a candidate for Java or any other like programming language, they will go deep dive into it. Like they will ask core technical questions on Java or anything, any technology. That's not the case over here. Here, along with technical skills, even the soft skills of an individual are important. So, soft skills doesn't mean that knowing English. That's a perception in India. The soft skills means English. So, your soft skills means how that individual is as a person. So, after coming on board or joining the office, how good a team player is, how good he is at collaboration. Like, does he have attitude? Does he has the right set of attitude to the work? You know, so those are the things which are given more weightage over here. So here it is more of a 50% technical skills, 50% soft skills. Whereas in India, it is almost around 80 to 80% technical skills, 20% like they see how the people speaks and how his communication skills are. That is the stark difference, the way job market is over here and the way job market is in India. What I feel is that, along with technical skills, the soft skills, they are also equally important because that determines how good an employee you are. As you go higher up the ladder, the technical skills does not matter much, but how are you able to make people work under you? Like how collaborative are you? how you whether your peers or your people are working under you respect you or not. That is something which is more important than the technical skills, and that is going to lead the company forward than just mere technical skills. So that is one thing, and that is my advice, like to all those people who are planning to pursue their education abroad, whether in US or India. Focus a lot on your soft skills as well, like studying the rather than just the
I can go next. I agree with that Neha said, and my experience has been very similar to this. So I did my undergrad at Westside. I worked in India, and then I did my master's in the US. And something that was really different to me is how your performance was evaluated in school. So till undergrad, the major way of showing if you learned the subject or not was final exams, which were always written. And then you had like some oral exam or a viva, but predominantly it was your assignments and your final exam. So there's some components that are retained, like you have assignments, especially it was you work with a group on a project and then you present to the entire class at the end, and that's how you get your grade. So for someone like me who was very very shy, very introverted, it was like a huge that, oh my God, I have to stand up in front of like 50 people and present. And it's practiced. But as Neha said, like these skills, like sometimes we call them soft skills which kind of like diminishes its importance, right? Like it's a soft skill, but it's actually very important. Communicating, collaborating, working with people that you don't really know. Usually we tend to choose project partners with like our friends because we know them really well, but you can't always choose the people that you work with. So it was really different the way things were evaluated. And another thing that was different in school in the US is you kind of have to be more independent. So I had like the comfort of home cooked food when I was studying in undergrad. But in when I moved here, I had to learn how to cook. I did not know how to cook till I moved here. And then you also have to kind of like make money while you're studying. So I had to teach a class. I was TAing for a professor, and something about business and stand up in front of like 25 students twice a week and speak to them. So again, this was another component where I had to learn how to talk. And I was like, oh my God, how do I do this? So it eventually, of course, like everything, it works out, but it took me out of my comfort zone a lot. And I remember we had like a presentation and communication skills subject in undergrad. Nagananda sir used to teach it. I hope that's still in syllabus. And yeah, I would urge everyone to pay a lot of attention and just practice what you learn in class outside. You know, you might think that I'm shy, I'm reserved, but if you practice, you can definitely overcome it. 90% of my job is talking to stakeholders and understanding their workflows and getting requirements. And I would not have been able to do this outside my.
I think just adding or echoing to what Neha and Rajasi just mentioned, right? The whole experience of coming out of your home country and exploring a new country, talking to a new set of people, interacting with complete strangers gives you a lot of confidence and an understanding of what your capabilities are. So personally for me, when I started back in India, half of the finance and dad, most of the household chores were taken care by mom. So there are very less responsibilities that you independently did when you're back at home. But once you step out of home, right, there are a lot of things that you have to independently take care of. So for example, you have to take care of your house, you have to take care of all your finances, you have to take care of each and everything that's related to you. And also you learn to talk to different set of people, not just from like one country. There are so many different people from every country that you meet and you talk to. You in this course of interaction, right, you also identify or you also eventually explore of your capabilities. So meanwhile, I realized that I'm so good at communications, I'm good at this, I'm good at that. So based on my interactions with strangers, I also realized my inner potential. So that is one experience that I have personally gained by studying here. So in terms of education, there is a difference that you would experience for sure. India is a lot of like focused on curriculum and the way how theory, practical exams, or the curriculum is designed being designed is more like focused towards your technical skills. So you come out a combination of technical skills and also your interpersonal skills, your soft skills, and the way you carry yourself, the way you talk in front of people. So all of these skills really help. And this is like a small difference that you would for sure feel. But apart from these curriculum and like the course differences that you observe in India and US, it's more like an experience difference that you would feel when you're back in your home country versus when you are in a different, like a new country at all.
I think that's a wonderful insight. Actually, truly being in US actually teaches you to be independent, right? As you
Yes. No matter where you are.
Well, signing off for the day, finally, what is one advice that you guys would like to give our audience for today?
I can go first, and I hope it's okay if I cheat a little and I have two. So the first one is specifically for women engineers that will be listening. So if you continue to pursue the path of being a woman in tech, there will be definitely situations where you're the only woman in the room. Depending on where your life takes you, you might be the only Indian woman in the room, or you might be the only immigrant woman in the room. At times where you find this intimidating, it's okay to be intimidated, but it's important to remind yourself that you are there for a reason. You are you are in engineering, you're in your fourth year, first year, second year, third year, wherever you are, for a reason. You scored the points, you have passed your exams. If you're in a job, it's because people thought that you were good enough to be hired for the job. So whenever you feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say it because maybe I'm not good enough, no, that's not true. I hope my voice rings in your ears and you remember that you are there for a reason, and your voices and your opinions matter. So don't underestimate yourself. That's one. One advice just for generally everybody who is listening is, it's okay to fail sometimes. I feel like there's a very weird relationship with failure. When I was in undergrad, I'm just going to come out and say it. I failed like my one subject in my first semester, and I thought I was such a loser. Like I thought like nothing is going to ever come out of me. Like, oh, how could I do this? I was such a good student all my life. If you're failing, it means you're trying something new. And I have never had a situation after I've moved here where somebody is, asked me, oh, did you fail a subject? Like, it really does not matter. It depends how you handle the failure and what you make out of it. I have talked about failing in my statement of purpose. I have talked about failing for the job I have now. And it's actually encouraged. People ask you, can you tell me a time where things did not go expected, and how did you overcome that? So remember that when are in situations which are not going well, especially in the last year or so, things have been remote. I'm sure it must have been challenging. If things haven't turned out the way you wanted to, there's always, like, it's okay. It's okay to fail. We are human. We don't have to be perfect all the time. That would be my suggestion to all the students. And yeah, thanks.
I think from my side, one key suggestion or key thing that I would leave to the audience would be just continue to dream and make sure that you work hard for it. We just need to realize that there's nothing that's impossible or there's nothing that you cannot do, irrespective you're a man or woman, irrespective of what career you choose. Just make sure that you dream big and have the courage and hard work to fulfill those dreams. So when we dream, right, we usually do not see or just have a blind side at the hard work that goes towards that dream. So when I started my journey, I knew that I wanted to become maybe like a wireless engineer or something. But eventually it takes a lot of hard work coming to US, coming to different country, and then moving away from our families. So there's a lot of hard work, there are a lot of sacrifices, there are a lot of gains that you have during this journey. Make sure that you enjoy each and everything. So have a goal, have a dream, and make sure that you achieve it.
Uh, what I would say is that during 12th, many people in 12th, many people don't know what they do. They take up this field in engineering, whether it is EXTC, electronics, or computers, because their friends are taking, whether it is the most sort of the field, and that is what happens with most of the people. But eventually, students realize that this is not what we want to do. Like, we want to do something else, whether it is finance or this. Whatever it is, like, so it is never too late to pursue your passion. Like, just keep focused, keep on pursuing your go like do every possible thing like you can to pursue your passion. Like there are many social media websites available now, like LinkedIn Learning, Coursera, where you can meet similar or like-minded people. You can take guidance from there. And I think even after that, suppose after engineering you were to pursue a particular course in one particular school in US or anywhere in the world, then you might not get admission to that. You might get admission to some other school which is low ranked than that. But that doesn't end it all. That doesn't stop you from getting what you wanted. Just be focused towards your goal, keep on pursuing your dream, and eventually everybody lands up where they want to. It's important.
Those were such wonderful advices for all of us. I'm sure we have a thing or two to take away. Well, I must say we're incredibly proud to be amongst all three of you. You've truly been an inspiration to all the women out there in our institution who are willing to make their mark in the tech world like each one of you have already have. It's been a wonderful time to interview you guys, and thank you so much for taking out time to be with us today.
Thank you. Both of you did a great job, and we're very excited to be here. Thanks.
Yeah,
thank you guys. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's all for today. I think every one of you had something to take away from today's session. And please fill the feedback form and get your certificates for this particular meeting. Thank you. Thank you all for coming and joining us for this session.